Welcome to the Chronicles of Yarnia, the podcast for Montclair's local yarn store. My name's Amanda, and today I have a special episode for you. I'm going to be talking about two things today. First, which we usually don't have time for in our normal podcasts because, as you know, we use it all the time talking about what we're just making in the past 2 weeks and plans we have for like the next 2 weeks. So today I'm talking about my plans for 2022, plus all those works in progress that you might have seen me start over the past couple of years and wondered what the heck is happening to them. So I have a few of those too, and I can catch you up on the progress on those. So first, I'm going to talk about my Make 9. I'm so excited. I haven't had a Make 9 I didn't have one last year for sure. Instead I had a new baby, and sometimes you can just look ahead at your year and be like, nope, can't plan for knitting this year or crochet or whatever, crafting, because I'm trying to sustain a human. So that was where we were last year. And this year, Teddy's 1 year old, and I have like more mental capacity to put together a Make 9 and make longer term plans for this year. So that's what I did. So my Make 9 is here. Yay! I'm super excited about it, and let me tell you all about the projects that I have for this year, some of which I've already started. The first one that I've started that you probably saw me talk about in our episodes earlier in January is the Imrebukse by Mini Modes. So I've already made those twice this year. They're baby pants for little ones like newborns, and I had two friends who had or will have babies in like the first month of this year. I guess the second one hasn't had their baby yet, so first 2 months of this year definitely will be here before March. So those are already done. I have a picture of how one of them turned out. I also put the bonnet, the little Imrekyse bonnet with it, where I did some modifications. So the bonnet that Mini Modes did has a like a casing for an I-cord to slide through. I'd like my bonnets to have their I-cords attached, but I really do like the ties on a bonnet. So I actually made a little bit of modification to the pattern. Instead of like doing a casing and then running an I-cord through it, I knitted an I-cord and then applied that I-cord and then knitted the other side of the I-cord. And this technique is actually in the Kojika pattern by Sasha and somebody. But I'll put the name down here too. But so I've made the Imrebukse, which is the first item, twice this year already. As you know, I've made this for Teddy twice already as well. So far I've made 4 pairs of these little pants. They are like some of my favorite baby pants. There are some errors in the pattern, like math errors in the pattern, which is, I mean, the first time I made it, it's pretty obvious when you get there, like that there are errors, but I have fixed the math because now I've made every size. And I have, like, if you have questions, feel free to like shoot me an email at shopyarnia.com, hello@shopyarnia.com, and we can help you out if you love this pattern as much as me. But I'm going to make it one more time for Teddy. Well, I say one more time, I might make it again, but I'm going to make it for Teddy again because I made him the 0 to 1 month when he was a baby, and then I made him I think there's a 3 to 6 month. Maybe I made him 3 to 6 months. The ones that I did earlier this year were 0 to 1s. I made him 3 to 6. I also made him a 6 to 12, or 3 to, maybe there's a 0 to 1, 1 to 3, which I made Teddy. Then there's a 3 to 12, which I made Teddy. And now I want to make him the 1 year to 3 year size because these are very stretchy, right? Knitted pants have a lot of give. So I have one more time to make this year, so I've made him 3 times. But I'm making his out of Sugarbush Crisp, which I love. I made his first pair out of Sugarbush Crisp, and this is such a great bouncy yarn. Unfortunately, Sugarbush is out of business. Womp womp. But I do love their yarn. We still have some in stock. And I snatched up a little bit to make Teddy another pair of these pants because I really, really, really love it. The ones that I made earlier in January, I made out of the El Rey Superwash DK, which is also really lovely, and is superwash. This is superwash as well. I think we just got in the Barocco DK, which I don't think I've even photographed and put up on the website yet, but that's going to be another option that, if it hasn't come already, it's going to come in the next month or two, and is also a great option. I personally love putting wool on babies, especially superwash, right? It keeps them so much warmer than a lot of synthetics. That being said, I use both for my babies. So that's the first thing on my Make 9, and I've already checked it twice. Ha! Awesome. The second thing on my Make 9 is also a kitty thing. At the beginning, actually, I guess it was in December when I first started thinking about what do I want to make this year. Charlie is in a preschool, like I've talked about, where he plays outside. They do come inside for like inside play and snack, but they play at least half of their school time, which is about 3 hours in the morning. Half their time is spent outside. So it doesn't matter the weather. Rain, he has a rain suit. Snow, he has a snowsuit. So he's always outside. When they come inside, because of COVID, they keep the windows open even when they're having like snack time and things like that. And it's been pretty chilly, as you may have heard Jen and Kara talk about on the Temperature Blanket podcast. It's been pretty chilly this winter. And Charlie needed some mittens that he could like flex his hands and eat his snack, but that were like still warm, which of course I could go and buy for him, but why would I do that when I could knit them? So I started looking for patterns. I love Norwegian colorwork mittens. I have a pair myself that I wear all the time, and even in like 15 degrees, those things keep your hands warm because you've got the double layer of yarn, right? It's not just like one layer, because you have the strands in the back. It creates almost a two-layered fabric that, especially after you wear them a while, if you're using non-superwash yarn, you've got like this layer, like 2 layers of wool that's trapping air in the middle. It keeps out the wind, it keeps out the cold, it has that air insulation, and they're just fantastic. I love them. I wear mine all the time. I wanted to have some for Charlie, who's 3, and I started looking around. I found a pattern, which I'll talk about on a regular podcast, but I knitted one mitten and I was like, this is way too big. It fit my 7-year-old, which was supposed to be the 2 to 3 year size. So I was like, well, I could do this. So I did. So my second item on my Make 9 was to make mittens for Charlie, which I did. And in the meantime, I wrote a pattern for the mittens that I made for Charlie. And these are them. I used some traditional Norwegian like colorwork designs with the little Norwegian star. And then, because he's my lovey, I added some little hearts. It's my love bug mittens. Yay! See? My love bugs. Here's the other side. It's a pretty simple design. The design like continues onto the thumb. We've got like little hearts up the thummy. He loves the hearts. He just thinks they're so cool. So I wrote these up. By the time this podcast comes out, the pattern will already be available. I'm linking it below. But I think these fit a 3-year-old really well. I made them out of Germantown that I have leftovers around the house. He's already worn them to school. I didn't block them, but I probably should, and I should get a picture of him. That's the one thing that's keeping me from like publishing this pattern already, is I got to get a cute picture of him wearing them. Oh, and I also, these ends haven't been woven in, but I also included 2 versions of the chart. Well, actually I guess 4. So this is the small size, which is Charlie's size. This is a little bit bigger size, which fits Eric. He's 7, but he's like on the smaller side of 7. So I'll put the measurements of the kids that it fits. It doesn't fit Abby. Abby's hands are like this on mine, so she's almost adult size. She would fit an adult size mitten. But this fits Eric. It's actually a little wider. You can see I added 4 additional stitches by just adding a border stitch on this, or 2 border rows on either side of the center here. And then I added some length here. You can see with the bigger heart up at the top. There you go. I was really happy with how that turned out. And in the pattern, I included 2 sets of charts. One where you have the dark color as the background for each size, and one where you have the light color as the background for each size, which means there's a lot of pages in the pattern, but don't print them all out. You only print out the ones you need. But the reason I like that is because if you do want to use a light color for the background like I did for this one, it's sort of challenging, like for your brain to look at, you know, light, dark for this chart and translate and knit the dark color on the light squares and the light color on the dark squares. It's much easier just to have a inverted color pattern. So that's what I did. It didn't take me that much time, and hopefully it'll help you guys. If you're interested in knitting kitty mittens, but I really am enjoying these, and now Eric got a pair of mittens out of that too, bonus. So those are my Love Bug Mittens, which was a surprise. I intended to knit somebody else's pattern for Charlie's mittens, but I ended up making one because I couldn't find what I liked. But yay, so that is item number 2 on my Make 9. Now for item number 3, let's see, what am I going to talk about? Alright, I'll talk about this one. Courtney Kelley's Eastbound Sweater. And the thing that inspired me to knit this sweater, it's been on my favorites in Ravelry for a long time. I tend to browse Ravelry a lot, and anytime I find something I like, I put it in my favorites. And then when I find a yarn that I really want to knit with, I can check the gauge or the needle size that's appropriate for that yarn, and then just filter my favorites based on that gauge or that needle size. I can even swatch that yarn and see what gauge I like the fabric at, and then find a sweater or garment or accessory that fits that gauge. And that's really useful for matching yarn to pattern. But when we got in the Lasco worsted by Ancient Arts, I knew I had to knit with this. Yeah, so Courtney Kelley's Eastbound Sweater, which I loved when it came out. I can't wait to knit it in this yarn, which I think is so awesome. So as soon as this came in, I got the yarn. I was, as you know, like swamped with my parents' sweaters last year. I never got it started. But as soon as I finish one of my whips, I'm going to start this one. We'll talk about that later. So this is coming very soon. It might take me a bit. It's a short sleeve sweater, so even if I don't finish it like in March, I can still wear it on cooler days like into May, right? Because we still have days with like a high in the 60s into May, and yeah, it's the perfect thing for high in the 60s. I have another short sleeve sweater that I have had for years, and it's one of my faves. So I'm super excited to make the Eastbound Sweater in Lasco Worsted by Ancient Arts. And this color is Lodgepole Pine. You can see like this Lasco Worsted, right? It is over dyed on a darker base, so the sheep aren't white like merino sheep are. And so it really gives it like a rich color. I love this Lasco. Yay! So that's my first sweater. The first thing that isn't for somebody else. Yay. Thank you, clouds. The next thing on my Make 9 I'm super excited about. I think it's going to be fun for maybe some of you as well. I'm going to be doing a YouTube knit along. So I have had this yarn in my stash for a while. This is not yarn we sell at Yarnia, but we have talked about this dyer. This is from Gauge Dye Works. And this particular skein was specially dyed to make the Flax Light sweater by Tin Can Knits for a kid. So it's about 150 grams of fingering weight yarn, and it's dyed so that you see how like there's these rainbowy colors in the beginning. So it makes rainbow stripes, and you cast on and there's like green, and then it makes rainbow, this muted rainbow at the beginning. And the body of the sweater, if you keep knitting down, is in the blue, and then I think there's green for tipping the cuff. So the green tips the sleeves in the bottom. So basically you get like a rainbow yoke sweater, but you don't actually have to do any work. So I bought this yarn when Eric, who is now 7, was 2, and I intended to make him a sweater. That didn't happen, obviously. It's still in my stash. I now have Charlie, who is 3, and then Teddy is a baby. So if I want to get a decent amount of wear out of this sweater, I have to make it now. Now what I thought would be fun is if I cast on this sweater on a YouTube live, and anybody else who is interested in knitting either flax, which is the worsted version, or Flax Light, which is the fingering weight version, maybe you're interested in doing it as a first sweater, can sit and watch and cast on with me. And we'll go through each step of the way. Since they're Facebook Live, you can ask me questions as we go, and I'll be happy to answer those. You can see as I make mistakes on my own sweater and what I do with it, as I am certain there will be mistakes. Pretty confident in that. But that'll be really fun, and that's probably coming towards the end of March. That's my plan. So stay tuned, both on our like Instagram feed. I'll have announcements as we go, or as we get closer, and you know, watch our podcast, Chronicles of Yarnia. Sign up for the newsletter if that's something you're interested in, so you're in the loop when we're going to do our Facebook Live for the flax for Tin Can Knits. And that'll probably be like a series of 3 YouTube live events to do different stages of the sweater. So that is another Make 9 item, the Flax Light by Tin Can Knits. All right, let's see, what next? Okay, another one. I have a queue of things to make, and this is the year that I'm going to make them. So the other thing that I'm making for sure this year is something that I've had the yarn for 18 months at least. So I work for in my day job, I work for a startup. That's like an insurance startup. And we have I love our corporate colors. They're so cool. I love the way they go together. So much that I want to incorporate them into a sweater design. So I got, these are our corporate branding colors. Yay! Look at that, isn't that awesome? The teals and the peaches and this pop of orange. Doesn't that look like a colorwork sweater combo that's just going to be amazing? Oh my goodness, I cannot wait. So this teal is going to be the body color, and the rest is going to be the colorwork design. And I looked through a whole bunch of patterns, and the one that I think that is going to look amazing is Dragon Hoard Yarn's Autumn Court, which is it uses several colors, so it's going to incorporate these really well. And it's a really sort of like modern graphic design. I also like how there's color work on the sleeves as well. I love the shape of the sleeves. Like, it's going to be good. Actually, I think that one has it has tapered sleeves. I might make these a little bit balloony sleeves, like just go straight with no decreases and then decrease quickly at the wrist, because I'm really loving that shape right now for sleeves. So that might happen on mine, but I can't wait to do Autumn Court by Dragon Hoard Designs. So that's what this is going to be. These are all colors of Allegria by Manos del Uruguay, which is one of my favorite fingering weights. It's so soft. This is the yarn that I knit Charlie's coming home from the hospital outfit in. So that's going to be lovely. I can't wait. I know, and I've had this, like I said, I've had this yarn like waiting for this project for at least 18 months, well before Teddy was born. I do that. I have an idea, I get the yarn, and I know I'm going to do it. It's going to happen, but this is the year. This is the year. It might take me 6 to 8 months to finish it, but it'll be done by next November, December, when I want to wear a sweater. Let's see. Okay, so that's 5 things so far. Well, 5 things so far on my Make 9. The next 4 things I don't have yarn for yet, so I'll just have to tell you about them. One, so I talked about Flax Light, which is going to be a knit along here on YouTube that I'm going to do some live episodes for. I have another knit along planned for this year, so that's on my Make 9 as well. Actually, it's not a knit along, it's a crochet along. For those of you that might have been following our podcast for a while, a long while, pre-COVID, or have been in the store since we opened, you'll know that I love blanket knit-alongs. So last year I didn't do one because we couldn't meet in store, so that's sort of a bummer, but we're gonna do one this year. We're gonna do the one this year that I had planned to do a while ago. And that is Hooked on Grannies by Hooked on Sunshine. I can't wait to do this. So you'll remember maybe my blanket that I made, I'll put a picture in here, for Teddy when he was born out of the King Cole Cherished. That was a Hooked on Grannies pattern. That was the Atlanticus pattern. I also made a Hooked on Sunshine pattern for my grandmother last summer. So that was a Hooked on Sunshine pattern. I just love her patterns, and she has a pattern Hooked on Grannies. And so with that pattern, there's there's several, maybe 16 different granny square options, and basically you just make different kinds of granny squares, but they really are like her medallions with all sorts of, you know, designs around them. They're really cool. I love them. So I think that would be really fun. I'm going to start with, like, they're also graded in terms of like easiest to more intermediate. So I will start with some of the simplest squares. So for folks who, you know the basics of crochet but might want to challenge themselves a little bit and learn new things, it's also a great project for that, because we'll be doing 1 square a month starting in, my plan is May. And I think this will be a great going into the warmer weather months project, because even though you're like, Amanda, I do not need a blanket in August, it takes a while to crochet a blanket. So if actually we do 12 months of that, we'll be able to do squares all through the summer, into the winter next year. And as you're putting those together, your blanket will get bigger and bigger, and keep you warm through the winter as you work on it. So that's the plan. But we'll start that in May, and the pattern is written for DK weight yarn, and there are a lot of options, and I'll talk more as we get closer to that about like how to modify that pattern for the size you want. If you want to make like a bedspread pattern or bedspread size and crochet along, that'll be fun. Or, you can do it baby size and just make, 6 squares, and that's fine too. I mean, that's one reason I really like this pattern, because it's not like, because you can finish a square, right? And sort of change your mind through the year. How big do I want this to be? Rather than have one of the designs that starts with a medallion in the center and grows, which you can also decide when to quit on that. Like, obviously Atlanticus was not a baby blanket, and I just made it as big as I wanted to, then put a border on. So it gives you a lot of options, but I think this will be a good way to, you know, by the end, those rows were getting very long, and the good thing about squares is they'll stay easy to manage and consistent month to month. So that is another item on my Make 9. Then next, I have been looking at Woolfolk Loft. So you'll remember I made Teddy's Coming Home outfit out of Woolfolk Snow, which is fingering weight, and it's divine. I also wanted to use that for a sweater for me. I made, what did I make? I made the sweater for me, the cardigan, last year out of Woolfolk Far, which is the worsted weight, and it's delicious and I wear it all the time. This is also made out of Woolfolk Far. This is the Prosecco cowl that I made that I designed out of Far last fall. And then I made, what did I make? Oh, I made the stripes, Andrea Mallory stripes, out of the flood, while Luft has been calling my name. Also, after taking a very long time at several sweaters, and you'll see that I had like fingering weight sweater to do, I also am looking forward to Luft because you knit it on like a 10 needles, so that's going to be a sweater that ends like super fast. But I was searching for a pattern. What pattern should I do with this? Well, like I said, since I saved my favorites, I can see which ones work at the gauge of a yarn I want to use. And guess what works for Woolfolk Loft? Camilla Vad's Magnolia Bloom. Yay! So that's on my Make 9 for this year. I can't wait to do it. I think it's going to be perfect. That one I'm going to do towards the end of the summer, going into fall. So I think that's going to be the perfect time for it. Maybe a possible Rhinebeck sweater. But you'll hear more about that going into the fall. I don't even know what color I'm going to do it in yet. We might see if Woolfolk is going to release any new colors for 2022. That could be a possibility. I don't know. But, I mean, it's really hard to go wrong with their color palette. I would honestly be happy with any of them. But I think that design with the lace yoke and the baubles is going to look beautiful and be super, super cozy in the Woolfolk Loft. I think I'm going to love wearing it. I'm going to love knitting it. So I'm really excited about that, and that's going to be a great like way to kick off fall. Yay. One that I found and got slid in on my Make 9 towards the end of last year is one that I know one of our Wednesday knit night regulars is also going to knit. So we're going to have our own mini cowl on our Wednesday virtual knit nights. And that is the Otra worsted by Skeindeer. So Skeindeer is one of my favorite knitting YouTubers. I've been watching her almost since she started YouTube, her YouTube channel. She's one of the people who inspired me to start our Yarnia YouTube. Just love her perspective on knitting. She gives great advice. Really loved watching her grow as a designer. And just, I love her aesthetic. But she came out with 2 patterns toward the end of the year. Based on her Otra pattern, which is one that's been out for a while. It has a colorwork yoke. But this is a Otra worsted, which means Otra faster, and honestly a little bit warmer. And she has it in 2 versions. One is a pullover, one is a cardigan. And there's options for both of those. You can do just the colorwork yoke, or you can do all over colorwork. So it's really 4 options. So I'm going to be doing the Otra cardigan, Otra worsted cardigan. And I already know what colors I'm doing it in, but I don't have them here. I'm doing them in Germantown by Kelborn Woolens because I love it. Because it's a great non-superwash worsted yarn. They've got great line of colors, and I'm going to do it in the ivory and the indigo. So the ivory will be the contrast, the indigo will be the background color. And that's going to be my Otra worsted cardigan. As soon as Jen's cables class, her winter sweater class is done, which might be a couple months from now, then we're going to kick off our mini knit along on Wednesday virtual knit nights for the Otra worsted cardigan. And that's a steeked cardigan. I think it's just going to zoom in worsted weight yarn. It's going to be super fun and also going to be super cozy. And I'm going to do the all over colorwork version. That's going to be a great one. Just a little like jacket, sweater. Can't wait. So that's my Otra worsted. Let's see, what else do I have? I think I've talked about everything but my very last thing, right? That's 8 things. Autumn Court, Imrebukse, Flax Light, Eastbound Sweater, Hooked on Grannies, Otra worsted, Mittens for Charlie, that's my love Bug Mittens, Magnolia Bloom, and the last thing is a sweater for Eric. I made a sweater for Eric 2 years ago, a year and a half, before Teddy was born. Year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago. I made the Anker's sweater. Anker's sweater by Petite Knits. So that's what I made Eric last time. I'm probably going to let him go to the store and pick out yarn that he likes and then find a, you know, sweater that goes with it. So that's my plan with him. I mean, I'm not making... The Anker, like, fits him now. The sleeves are getting a little shortish. So he's going to continue wearing that to the rest of this winter. And then his new sweater will be for next fall and winter. So yeah, he'll have to wait until then. And I'll see what size he is. If the little dude has a growth spurt, I'm certainly not knitting him something now. And have him, you know, outgrow it. So we'll get to that in the fall. I don't even know what pattern I'm making yet. Like I said, I'm going to let him pick out the yarn. His rules are no bulky and no fingering, right? Because a bulky, often he's not going to wear a bulky. Like the super bulkies don't keep you as warm because the stitches are so big a lot of times. And yeah, DK worsted, maybe a sport, possibly an Aran, but probably staying worsted DK sport range. And we'll see what he picks. Up to him. So that's the end of my make 9. That's my... I'm super excited. So that's what's in my queue for this year. That's what you can expect to see me working on through the year. I'm a real big plan aheader, and then I pretty much stick to my plan. So yeah, that's a few new things will come up here and there, like I cast on the Soraya. Of course, I want to knit that along with everybody from the store and all you guys too who are knitting along with us with Seisha's new design that's out in La Bien-Aimé's book. So that's, you know, I'm always going to pick up those things through the year, but those are my core projects that I'm going to work on this year. Pinky swear. All right. So now, the second part of this, and the reason that we can't talk about everything, I never have time to talk about everything on our regular podcast, but now I'm going to share it with you, are all the things that are languishing. They're not really languishing, they're just set aside for now. So I'll talk about each one, because there's all a reason that, for some reason or another, I'm not working on them now, but I have plans to work on them in the future. They're definitely not projects that are not going to get done, they're just not going to get done right now. So I'd love to talk about those with you because we don't, you know, sometimes we feel guilty about like, oh, I have these books, I'm not working on them, but you don't, like, it's not an obligation. And the longer I knit, the more I realize like things will get done eventually. And just because it's not done now doesn't mean like now is the time that it needs to get done. It might need to get done later. I've got other priorities right now, like I've already talked about, right? Sweaters I have to get done for growing kids if I want them to wear them when they fit and not put them away for, you know, some to-be child in the future, but none of my own. Like, that makes no sense. Why would I do that? So I'd much rather save some of these projects for later, because I know I'll get to them. So let me share those with you. First, here's one from last summer that is now on hold. And this is my Kamilla sock by JennyPenny. So I actually started this last summer. This is my first ever colorwork sock. I love it to death. This checked off, and I actually saw somebody finished one of these in our sock bingo. I was so happy. Yay! But you'll see, like, this is the colorwork chart. It's just beautiful. Doesn't it look like ironwork? Oh, I love it so much. So this is definitely going to get done. I realized it was not going to get done last summer. I just have a whole lot going on, and you know, reading a chart, a colorwork chart, takes a lot of brain power. And I didn't have brain power last summer. So after I finished the first repeat, which I really wanted to do, so there's three repeats on each sock. So this sock is 1/3 done. I set this aside and worked on other projects, worked on some simpler socks, right? Did the sock knit along for a plain vanilla sock, which was my brain capacity last summer. I'm making these out of West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply in the milk bottle and another color. It's like blueberry something. So these two West Yorkshire Spinners, which is some of my favorite sock yarn. I really, really love this. It's 35% Blue Face Luster. Great, great, great for colorwork. And this is absolutely going to, these are going to get done. But what I actually think is we're going to have sock bingo this summer. Why not? And if you recall sock bingo, right? We count each sock. So I don't have to finish a pair of socks with colorwork. I just have to finish one sock with colorwork. If Kathleen puts in a colorwork square or a 9-inch circular square, or you know, these socks check off so many boxes. There's lace on them. So these are going to sit to the side until sock bingo this summer, and then I'm going to actually cast on the second sock, have it count for sock bingo, then go back and finish the first sock. That's the strategy on the Kamilla Socks. So you will see this again this summer, but it's not really a make 9 because I honestly might not finish the second sock this year, which is actually the first sock that's there. That might be a 2023. We'll see how brain powery I am this year. TBD. Alright, so that's number 1 whip that's hanging around. Let's see. Number 2 is one that was here. Speaking of blanket knit-alongs, this is my, pure wool worsted Mystery Afghan Cow by Martin Storey. That's a long name. I put it in the down bar. It'll be in the description. But this was a knit-along that Rowan actually did like in 2014. Martin Storey designed this blanket. It's a blanket. This is folded in half too. It's huge. I have 48 squares here. This was one of our Yarnia Square of the Month knit-alongs. This was the last one we did. So, and I know I took this to my oldest daughter's freshman year of college when I went to visit her in 2019, spring of 2019. So we had just kicked off this project in spring of 2019. We knit it all the way through January of 2020. So we had just finished this in January of 2020. I sewed it all together during summer of 2020. And there's only one part left. The very last clue of the mystery knit-along. So you'll see this is all sewn together, all finished. But there's a border on this blanket. And I have not knit it yet. So I have a project bag here. This is a project bag that actually one of my kids made. I was teaching them how to sew. I started the border, and it's a knitted braid. It's actually like a cable, so you cable like every 10 rows on this twisted braid and then apply it to the project. It's really good. I want to have the border on there because I know over time borders on your blankets actually protect the edge of the blanket from wear, right? If the edge of this gets frayed, it's only going to fray through 8 stitches, whereas if, you know, this gets frayed and this is only like 1 thick, this twist in here is going to keep this a little bit stronger. It's going to protect the edge of this blanket from wear and keep the main blanket looking nice, whereas this is something you can repair easily on the edge of the blanket over time. But this has to be very long to go all the way around this 48 square blanket, and this is all I've gotten so far. I have a long way to go. So actually, as you know, I'm like working on this Pokemon blankets, 2 blankets in Pokemon yarn this year for my sons, with the Molly Girl specially dyed Pokemon Club, which we also have in the store. Yeah, right now that's my work project. So when I'm on conference calls or, you know, like it's just mindless. I just knit squares or crochet granny stripes. But that's my like mindless blanket project while I'm at work. But after I'm done with that, which will, I mean, we're on what, the 5th gem now, and there's going to be 12. So it's going to be 2023 by the end of that. I'm done with that. Then I'll get to this again. This will become my mindless project for 3 months while I'm working. And then it'll get done, and then I'll apply the border like over a 2-week period on the couch at night while I'm watching TV. I'll just put the border on like as I use this as a blanket. And then it'll be done. But I'm not in a rush. We still use this now. And I actually think my kids have popped a couple seams in here. I need to repair it, but that's no big deal. I mean, dog hair and all sorts of, like, this is a blanket we use. And it's great. I love it. I would highly recommend it. I think we'll probably do this again as a knit along in the store because I really, really like this one. It's great for building skills. And yeah, so maybe after 2022 is a crochet along year, maybe 2023 will be a knit along blanket year. And we'll work on that. So that's, again, like, so that's why I'm not working on it right now. It will get done. I have a plan. It's not this year. My next one is another blanket. Do we have a theme? I have finished other blankets, but blankets are long. I love this blanket. So my next one that is on the on hold is my Elder Throw by Lisa Richardson. Look at these colors. So this blanket is also a Rowan mystery knit along. This is done in like 14 colors of felted tweed. So I saw the preview picture. Well, it wasn't a mystery. We knew what it was going to look like before the knit along started. And so I knew what it was going to look like. Love it. These colors go so well in my house. They're very much my aesthetic. It's great. And I've done quite a bit, right? We started off with like these mitered squares here, and like you joined as you went, then you picked up stitches here and did some of this lace. Then we picked up on this long edge and did this like diamond cable thing, which these took me a little bit, because it is cables on every row, those little diamonds. But then the next square went really fast. It was like these little lacy, you know, lace squares. Those were super, super, super fast. And then these mesh panels, these 2-color mesh panels. There's actually 2 colors there. I don't know if you can see it so well. Oh, this one you can see really well. Then there's these 2-color mesh panels. There's a pink and a green in there. It's really cool the way that she stripes and meshes it. So I think those are the 6 clues I got through. I have all my yarn in this really big bag here. Everything's here. But then I got to clue 6 or 7, which is living in this bag. And it is 3-color mosaic knitting. It's beautiful. I have a yarn tangle because I can't win with this light today. This is what it looks like so far. It's beautiful. I would sort of like a sweater in this pattern, except it takes forever. Because like mosaic knitting, you're only knitting like half the stitches on each row, so each row actually takes like 2 rows to do. Because you're knitting some stitches and slipping others, and then the next one you go back and knit that row with another color, and it just takes a long time. This has taken me hours, and I have to knit 4 of these, I think. I mean, they're actually quite large. I'm about halfway through the first one, and this, I just have to decide to finish it and power through this section. And then I think, because I sort of did that with the diamonds as well. Like I set it aside for several months and didn't do the diamonds. And then I picked it up again and finished the diamonds like super fast. But I'm just not inspired to do the mosaic knitting right now. So I'm just letting it sit there. It will still be there. It will still be beautiful. I will still love it, and I will pick it up. But not right now. So that is The Elder Throw by Lisa Richardson. Maybe 2023. Yeah, maybe it'll be on my Make 9, Finish 9. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth being on a Make 9 because I've got probably 4 clues left, and 4 clues in a big blanket, to me, like, is project worthy. You know what I mean? Like, it counts as big enough to be on a Make 9. Square. It earns a square. But not for 2022. Let's see. I have 2 other things. This one I love so much. I love this so much. So this, I got this skein of yarn. You'll see the middle is gone because it's already been knitted up. But this is a one-of-a-kind skein from Apple Tree Knits. It's 100% silk lace, 100% mulberry silk lace, and a rainbow gradient, a dark rainbow. So you see, like, I've got left, I'm getting towards the greens, and then I've got like the orangey, the yellows, orange, and the little bit of orange and the red. So that's what I have left. I started this in the summer. Oh, am I mid-row? I hope not. Oh, yes I am. Ha ha ha. Not only am I mid-row, I'm smart. Look at this. I took my needles off. I needed them for another project. So this is the Chiagu interchangeable set. And you can take your tips off when you need them and put them on another cable like you can with interchangeables. So that's what I've done here. I've just stopped in the middle of a row. So this is, so it's sort of hard to show you, but this is the Stillness Shawl by Helen Stewart. Look how amazing this is going to be. This is going to be a shockingly amazing piece when I'm done. Like the perfect summer shawl. It's going to be 100% silk. It's going to be like taking a plane flight in the summertime or whatever, and just like throw it in your bag. It like literally mashes down to nothing and then it's just huge at the same time. So the Stillness Shawl was a mystery knit along by Helen Stewart in the summer of 2019. Summer of 2020? Could have been 2020. I think it was 2020. It was before Teddy was born. And I had this skein. I was looking for a project. I saw that Helen Stewart was having a knit along. I was like, perfect, let's do that. Her pattern, she was writing for fingering weight, 3 colors of fingering weight. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this pattern on obviously one color, that changes, one skein that changes color. I was doing her shawl on one skein, one ginormous skein. Oh, by the way, jumbo skein. So this is 1,643 yards of lace weight yarn, 150 grams. So that's what I was doing this on. And I was converting her pattern. So I had to knit it on smaller needles. But it's a pie shawl. So the way that that works, it's all based on like the diameter of a circle, right? The what's the circumference equals 2 pi r, to twice the radius or the diameter, right, times pi, which means that every time you double the radius, you need to double the circumference. So when you're knitting a pie shawl, every time you get to a distance that the radius is doubled, right, you double your number of stitches, often by doing knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, right, which gives you an extra stitch every time, right? So like you see the holes are closer together up front because, you know, if it's say 1 centimeter, then doubling it at 2 centimeters, then double that, you increase at 4 centimeters, then at 8 centimeters, then at 16 centimeters, then at 32, right? And so your increased rows where you're doubling the circumference spread out as you go on along the shawl. So that's what this is. So I can do math, like I can figure out how big my radius has become, how frequently do I need to increase, and that type of thing. And Helen, of course, had figured that out in her pattern for fingering weight yarn, and, you know, it mostly carries over to, even though I changed my needle size, it's still a proper gauge for this material, so it worked. Anyway, however, knitting at a much finer gauge, I finished her pattern like by the time I was in the blues, basically. I only had like one section left and I was still in the blues, so I was like, yeah, because this is like getting towards the end of the Stillness Shawl. You see like the little, there's this lacy part, and then there's these tuck stitches part, or like little, it's not nups, but they're like little cute little texture parts. You can really see it there. I was like almost at the end of the pattern. I was only in the blues, and obviously I have a lot of yarn left to go, so I'm like, okay, we've got to like modify this pattern. So I kicked off, I actually looked through some of my stitch dictionaries and found this lace design, which now I'm working on. It's like this Tree of Life type pattern. That's going to go in here. I have it on my phone. I've got all the details of like what the chart is. But I have to pay attention to a chart over, I mean, all these, you see all these stitch markers? Can you see? Is it focusing? There we go. You see all these stitch markers? Each stitch marker marks off a repeat of the pattern. There's a whole lot of repeats to get across many, many, many stitches on this shawl. I stopped this because I had an infant, and I do not have the mental bandwidth to be doing like 30 repeats of a lace pattern across a huge shawl. So, and now I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and a full-time job and all that jazz, and I just don't have the mental bandwidth to do this right now. So this project is well documented. It's on my Ravelry. Oh, look at that. There's my... I'm finding things in my bag. I wondered where this like little, this is a yarn cutter. This is perfect for when you travel on a plane, because it's not scissors, and yeah, cut your yarn no problem. And then a Girl Scout badge. Must be World Thinking Day, probably from 2020, before the world shut down. Yeah, 2020 or 20, yeah, I think. So that is going to sit in my bag probably until my kids are quite a bit older. Maybe until Teddy's in elementary school, you know, or at least in preschool. And work settles a little bit, and then I'll be able to get back to that and have this amazing silk shawl that is going to be like magnum opus worthy. But it's not going to be a 2022 project because I have a 1-year-old. And still he plays with my yarn, right? So I need to have short amount of stitches on my needles, because I have to put things away at a moment's notice. And then the very last thing, okay, so my very last thing, which is going to start making regular, which has been sort of on the side for the end of last year, but is going to start making very regular appearances on the podcast soon, is my Mino Pullover Vest by Sylvia Watts-Cherry. Here, let me stand up and show you how far along this is. Look at this. This vest was in the By Hand magazine, maybe 2019 as well, in the London edition. So Sylvia Watts-Cherry is a London designer. This is her Mino vest. And I really wanted to work this vest. I love the designer. I love the design. I think it's super cool. B, I really wanted to work in Spring Street by Northlight Fibers. That's their fingering weight base. And this is, that's what I've worked this in. All right, and C, this vest was written to have stranded colorwork knitted flat, which is a technique I had never done before. The pattern was written to do the whole vest that way, so to actually knit a back and then knit a front and then seam them together at the sides. I modified this vest to actually do colorwork in the round. So I did the whole body in the round all the way to the armholes. So I took out the seam allowance on the side, although I don't know what I was thinking. For some reason I still like knit an extra green stitch in the middle there, so it sort of looks like a faux seam. I don't know why I did that. I thought about it like after 2 repeats of the pattern, and I was like, well, forget it. It's just going to be that way. I did it on both sides, so at least it's consistent. But anyway, so then I got to the armholes, and I actually put it to the side a little bit because I was really nervous to like try this new technique. It just seemed like such a big thing to do. So I actually, this was the only project I took with me. I actually took this and my dad's sweater with me when we went to Rhode Island this summer. We actually went to Northlight Fibers and visited them, and I took this with me. So basically forcing myself to like work on this vest. So I did it. I sat down, I was on vacation, so I sat down and actually worked on it, and guess what? It wasn't that hard. I just had to like carry yarn in the front instead of carrying it in the back. It wasn't anything to be scared of, which is the same thing with a lot of knitting techniques that we haven't tried before, right? It's just like, I think a lot of times like we're busy, we're thinking of like so many things at a time, and so many priorities in our lives have like are talking for our brain space, that the thought of focusing and learning something new seems really daunting. But once you give yourself that seems, you take it, you take the time, you tell everybody else, no, I'm not working on your stuff right now. I'm learning this, you know, that I need to focus on and learn. Then it actually goes pretty fast. So that's what I found on this. I actually finished the back of this while we were on, no, I don't think I quite finished it, but soon after we got home, I finished the back, and then I started the front, and then I got sort of in a pickle with my parents' sweaters, as you may recall. I had to finish them, so I completely set this aside for about 4 months, and now I'm picking it up again now that my parents' sweaters are finished, and working on it again. And yeah, so I mean, I've got, you know, what's that, like, basically a pattern repeat left to go on the front. The back, of course, goes up a little bit higher. The front, you know, has like a scoop neckline, so there's less knitting on the front than there is on the back. I'm gonna have to get another skein of brown yarn because that's all I have left. So there's that too. But yeah, this will get done probably maybe Marchish time frame, which seems like a good time to have a new vest. So yeah, and I probably actually will put that in the store, maybe in the front window of Yarnia for a little bit. Let folks see it. I think it's nice and springy, right? So that might be there for a little bit, and then I'll take it home, because yeah, I think that's like worth showing off for a bit. So that's all of my sort of works in progress that maybe you saw in the past and you haven't seen in a while, and maybe you forgot I ever started them. Maybe I forgot I ever started them. That's not true. I sort of know in the back of my head what's there, and exactly what my plan is for it, but it's good to bring them out and talk about them and sort of, you know, put words to, okay, what's my plan for this? Do I have a plan for this? You know, and you know, once it's framed as like my shawl, okay, this is my plan that I'm going to start this up again in say 3 years when Teddy's a little bit bigger and I don't have as much, you know, physical work or a child pulling on my yarn when I'm knitting, which is really a problem when you're working silk on a size 2 needle. Yeah, not the best thing for babies. So that might sit aside till I get out of the baby stage, which is fine. But it's good to know that, and then it, you know, takes the pressure off of like, what am I going to do about this? Well, you know exactly what you're going to do, and it's just not now. And I'm also super excited about my Make 9. I hope you enjoy watching as those projects move through this year. And feel free to ask me how the progress is if you don't hear about any of them, or if you're interested in them. Would love to hear about your Make 9s too. If you posted any on Instagram or something, link them below. Let folks look at them. So yeah. Thanks so much for watching this. It's been so fun sharing with you. I hope you have a great day, and happy knitting. Take care. Bye.